righty. Well, we'll get started, and if people are late, I'll let them know at the end that we are recording this and putting it on YouTube, just like we do with all of our material, so they can catch up if they need to. For everyone who's here, welcome. Again, this is Code Platoon's virtual info sessions. I am your host, Greg Drobny, Student Outreach and Recruitment Manager. As you can see, my email address and phone number is on the page right here. So if you need to reach out to me, please feel free to do so. That is what I'm here for at Code Platoon. I'm happy to set up a private phone call with you in order to answer questions and address any concerns that are not addressed on this call. But we will be giving an overview of what Code Platoon is and does. So hopefully I'll answer your questions, but if not, we'll open it up at the end and you can ask questions here as well. Next slide, please. So today's agenda: who we train, our programs, funding and scholarships, a two-part application process, admissions prep, timing and deadlines, and then, like I mentioned a minute ago, a live Q&A. So next slide. First, who we train. These are the demographics that Code Platoon serves. We serve veterans, military spouses, and service members using SkillBridge. First, veterans, if you've served in the United States military, you are a welcome participant at Code Platoon. Second, military spouses. If you're a military spouse, either of an active duty military member or previous member, so they could be a veteran, and we do serve military spouses. And also service members using SkillBridge. If you're out already, you're not in the military currently, then SkillBridge rather is not something that you need to be concerned with. It is a program for those who are on active duty and looking to do a program prior to transitioning out of the military. It's a great opportunity that exists in the military. I can go into a little bit more detail on this later, but it's a great opportunity for those who are looking to transition out and get some skills in before they get into a program, or get into the civilian world. And that way they're set up for success. Once they hit the civilian world, they can hit the ground running. So next slide. Our programs. Here is currently what is available at Code Platoon. We've got a full stack immersive, which is our flagship program. That's what Code Platoon started with, is a full stack software engineering immersive cohort. That's a Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Honestly, it's probably more like 10 to maybe even 12-hour days, Monday through Friday, for 15 weeks. Again, that's our flagship program. That program can be done in person or remotely. It is the only one of our programs that can be done in person. That includes live synchronous classes either way. So if you are in person or you are remote, you're attending the same cohort with the same people at the same time. So if you're attending remotely, and we get asked this a lot, if you're attending as a remote student, it's still showing up. You're still logging on at the same time as the in-person classes. You're doing the same things with the same people. So keep that in mind if you're looking at a remote program. It's still the same program. So that is the main flagship program. We also offer that in an evening and weekends model. That is something for those who just cannot give up their day job and they want to still do our program. That takes that 15-week program and it extends it out to 28 weeks. It's still an intensive program in terms of hours. You're looking at 5:30 to 9:30 Central Standard Time, Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursday evenings, and Saturdays from 8 to 5. There are reasons why it's that hourly intensive, and a lot of that has to do with VA benefits. We wanted our students to be able to take advantage of Vet Tech as a funding mechanism. And Vet Tech as a program does not fund part-time programs. So our evening and weekend program is structured in a way that it is not a part-time program. It's an evening and weekend program, and it does meet the minimum hourly requirement to still be funded by Vet Tech. The flip side of that is it is not a SkillBridge program. You're not going to do SkillBridge and do evening and weekend because it extends past 180 days, which a service member has to be in their last 180 days to take part of a SkillBridge program. And it does not have the apprenticeship program And also you are not going to use something like GI Bill on the evening and weekend program because there is no in-person option for this program. GI Bill requires in-person attendance. Third and fourth, we are now in 2023 introducing a DevOps program, DevOps engineering, which some could say that we're the first to have an exclusive DevOps curriculum. It depends on how you define that. Some other programs have taught DevOps as a skill set, but we are offering an exclusive DevOps curriculum, a DevOps engineering program. And those will be broken up the same way as the full stack in terms of the different options. So there's a 15-week full-time, and then also the 28-week evening and weekend. Those are remote only. We do not have an in-person option for those. So keep that in mind. In terms of the funding, we'll get into this a little bit later, but there are some different funding issues that go into that. But we'll discuss this as we go. Next slide, please. As I said, funding and scholarships. So here are the different options that are available for each of these programs. Full stack immersive in-person has the most options available. GI Bill, Vet Tech, VRE. Some people know VRE as Voc Rehab, typically used as veterans with disabilities or disability rating through the VA can access VRE benefits. That depends largely on using a VA counselor, a VRE approved counselor to approve the program. So you do have to go through them in order to do that. And then finally, scholarships, the numerous scholarships that we offer at Code Platoon, everyone is probably eligible for something. We have them for every demographic that we serve. And then we have the, again, like I said, the remote programs are not eligible for the GI Bill. That's not an option. And the DevOps program, I do need to note here that the Vet Tech right now, we're currently waiting on approval from the VA for our Vet Tech approval. We are a Vet Tech authorized school. We do work exclusively with VA. I shouldn't say exclusively. We work extensively with the VA. And so we're in the process of just getting that authorizing and making sure that we do have that. And it's just a matter of playing the waiting game, but we anticipate that happening in 2023. Again, these are the various funding options, but I'm happy to talk one-on-one with anybody or answer questions at the very end if you want some more detailed answers on that. Next slide. Our two-part application, and now a lot of people wonder about this, so we're going to go into a little bit of detail as I go on this, but there are two parts to our application. The first part is very self-explanatory. It's an intake form that basically we just ask kind of where you've been and what you've done in the military, a little bit about yourself, and it's basically a method of signing up for our program. Part two is where things get a little bit more involved. We have 3 parts to our part 2. And as you can see written here, those consist of the coding challenges, video, and essays. Now, the common question that always comes up at this point is, why do I need to do coding challenges to get involved with a coding program? If I'm coming to you to learn coding, why do I need to know coding in order to learn coding? We have the answer to that question. It's part of this entire process. We have that for you, and we're going to go into that on the next slide. Intro to Coding, that is our answer to that question. Intro to Coding is a free self-paced course to prepare you for those coding challenges. It's us giving you a free program that starts your journey down the path of becoming a software engineer. This offers a dedicated Slack community, so we can get you signed up for the Slack channel that you can ask questions on and basically crowdsource your answers, in addition to having instructors who monitor these forums and offer you insights into how to solve some of these problems. So there is some support. It's not completely self-directed, but it is free to sign up for the self-paced version. And again, the design of this is to help you prepare for the coding challenges on the application. But we also have the Intro to Coding live program. Now that is the same course, but we have an instructor-led version of that. Same curriculum taught by a Code Platoon instructor and teaching assistants. This does have a limited class size, but this, if you sign up now, I can tell you that we have one upcoming, and I think we have that on a next slide. We can get you in there without too much difficulty. Again, this is to help you prepare, so it's a great resource. So email me if you have questions about that. And as I note here at the bottom, for DevOps application prep, it is a little bit different. It should be noted that the Intro to Coding course is JavaScript centered. So it's teaching you the fundamentals of JavaScript. The DevOps application is going to be in Python. We do have resources for you to point you towards, rather, for Python instruction. We don't have any in-house Python intro courses at this time. That's probably something that we'll have down the road, but that's another resource that we can offer via outside sources. So next slide, please. As I stated, we do have an Intro to Coding live coming up on November 28th. The deadline to apply for that is tomorrow. If, however, you want to sign up for this and you want to get in for free, normally it's $50, but if you're here watching this, then you notice at the bottom, the promo code to sign up for a free pass for this is Student Experience. That will meet Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 6 to 9 Central Time for, let's see, until December 15th. So November 28th through December 15th. Again, that's an instructor-led version of the Intro to Coding. You can access Intro to Coding at any time. If you go to our website right now, if you go to codeplatoon.org, under admissions prep, you'll see a little pull down menu, and you can sign up for Intro to Coding, and you can start right this second. You can get signed up and start the self-paced version right this second. But for an instructor-led version, I highly encourage taking advantage of the live version right here. It's taught by Charles Kubiak, who's a former Marine, great guy, great instructor. Cannot recommend this highly enough. Next slide, please. Upcoming cohorts and deadlines. Full stack software engineering immersive, as you can see, Uniform Platoon is our next available. That starts June 5th and runs through September 15th with an application deadline of March 5th. Now, that may seem like a long time from now, but when you start getting into developing your skill set in this, you'll realize that that's not that far away, and it's a good time to start preparing now. You're in a great position if you're looking at starting any of these programs right now, because you've got some time to prepare, but there's no time like the present to start. The next evening and weekend program starts May 30. The deadline to apply for that one is February 19. And the next available cohort we have at all is DevOps Immersive Alpha. That is our first DevOps engineering offering. Deadline to apply for that is January 8th. And again, worth mentioning again, the application challenges on that will need to be done in Python instead of JavaScript. So keep that in mind if you are applying to that program rather than the software engineering. And that's an option on the software engineering. I should add that too. If you're applying to software engineering, the full stack program, you can actually solve the coding challenges in one of 3 different languages. You can use Python, or you can use JavaScript, which is what our prep material is in, or you can use Ruby on Rails. So there are 3 different language options for the software engineering application challenges. Oh, and also the DevOps evening and weekend alpha platoon will start August 28th. We anticipate that being a popular way of doing this program, primarily because a lot of the people who are working in the DevOps field right now started as software engineers. So they have some software engineering skill set already, and they have transitioned into that DevOps world. So we anticipate the evening and weekend option for this being a very popular one and in high demand. Next slide, please.
I'm actually going to interrupt you really fast because we got a question that I think would be well answered on this slide. The question is, why are the deadlines so far out from the start of the cohorts?
Fantastic question. And I probably should just work this into the presentation because that's one that comes up often. So that is a fantastic question. And there are a couple of reasons for that. Number one is funding, squaring away the funding issues, whether that be a VA funding option, something like vet tech. If a student is accepted to our program, they want to use vet tech, but they haven't applied yet, vet tech takes typically 3 to 4 weeks just for the VA to process whether or not they are eligible for that program. Scholarships, we have to go through the process of applying to scholarships. Now, we don't do scholarship applications like a lot of universities. You're not going to write a 10,000 word essay and get $500 for this, and a 5,000 word essay and get $500 for that. That's not how it works at Code Platoon, but we do have to go through that process. But in addition to that, and maybe more fundamental to this whole path, is that there is coding work to be done in the interim. And something that Code Platoon will be offering actually coming up in 2023 is something called Foundations of Programming, which is a 4-week introductory program that will predate the cohort. So if you're accepted to a cohort, let's say Uniform Platoon, and you want to join this Foundations of Programming to help you prepare for that cohort, we're going to be offering something, we're going to have exactly that. There is pre-work that has to be done prior to the start of the program and passing certain mile markers or milestones, if you will, so that all the students who get into day one that start the program, they're ready to hit the ground running. And as students, all of you want this. It's the analogy that I use all the time is, imagine if you had gone to basic training in the military and everybody in your basic training company had been running a mile or 2 miles every day prior to starting basic training, how much easier everything would have been. It's not a lot. They're not going to be marathon runners, obviously, but everybody is going to be at least in decent shape. That's kind of what we do in the interim. We want you to keep engaged, start building that foundation so that on day one, you're understanding that this program is intense. We're upfront about that from the get-go. We want people to know that this is an intense program and that you're going to get a lot out of it. But in order to do that, we want to make sure everyone is prepared to be able to do that. So that's the 2 primary reasons for that, is just simply getting all of those things squared away and making sure that everyone's on the same page regarding both funding and preparedness, so that when day one hits, you're off to the races. And it is indeed off to the races in this program. So it's something that benefits everyone in the long run. Hopefully that answered the question, but please ask another. As a resource that we often point people to, and we're now including this in our webinar, many students who have come to me over the last 6 months have asked a lot of questions that are better answered by the resource that is right now on the screen. Kana was a Air Force veteran who went through our program, and she actually did our program from Denmark, of all places. So she was on a crazy different time zone, but she did a week-by-week video blog of what her experience was like. So if you look for that, I think Kayla's putting it in the chat, the link to Kana's video series on YouTube. She does a fantastic job of explaining what her time at Code Platoon was like and what you can expect. And they are not long videos. You're not going to have to sit through, like some 2-hour long video just to tell you about day one. These are about 8 to 10 minute long videos talking about each week at Code Platoon and what that was like and what you can expect to learn. So far better than me trying to tell you what it's like to go through Code Platoon. Listen to someone who recently went through and kind of her own personal perspective. And she was a rock star of a student too, so we can't recommend this highly enough. Next slide, please. As I said at the beginning, any questions you have on a personal level or about any of this that you don't want to ask here, that's what I'm here for at Code Platoon. So that's my email address. Email me if you want to set up a time to talk. We can absolutely do that. If it's a quick question, I'll answer via email. But if you want to hop on a phone call to discuss these things further, I am absolutely happy to do that, because that is what I do here. So please write this down or copy it down, shoot me an email. If you haven't already, if you've already been in contact with me, then awesome. We've already made contact and we'll go from there. But that's what I'm here for. So again, please don't hesitate to ask me questions in any way you can. Any questions at this time?
Yeah, we have another one in the Q&A. The question is, if I started an application for the last deadline but didn't finish step 2, do I need to start over again, or can I just pick up where I left off?
You are fine to pick up where you left off. The real issue there, and I shouldn't even say issue, the main thing that we're worried about is what cohort you put on part 2. As long as you are indicating on part 2, when you submit your full application, submitting with the correct cohort on that one, then what you put on part 1 is not anywhere near as important. So keep going as you are. No need to redo part 1. This happens pretty frequently, so that's not a big deal at all.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Another question. Are Code Platoon programs available to non-US military veterans?
At this time, no. I can tell you that there is a school in Canada. If you happen to be Canadian, there is a version of our school, and we're not affiliated with them, although we have talked to them and we know of them a little bit. We're not officially affiliated in any way, but there is a Canadian coding school that is specifically for Canadian military veterans. Outside of US and Canada, I don't know. I would have to do some research, but no, we do not. We're not open to non-US military veterans at this time.
All right, another question. When I submit my completed application, how long does it take to get a response about being accepted?
Right now, typically it's 24 to 48 hours because the instructor who evaluates our applications is a rock star and he knocks it out pretty quickly. The only time it will be longer than that is when we come up on a deadline. So if you see the deadlines for the cohort, the application deadline dates, if you're submitting, let's say the week of the deadline or right up to the deadline, it's going to take him maybe a little bit longer than that. It might take 3 or 4, maybe even 5 days. He's usually really fast with it. If you're submitting well before the deadline, I've seen him turn it around in a day, maybe 2 days. So it does somewhat depend on the time, but it's almost never longer than a week, which means, a very common follow-up question to that is, yes, you can apply at any time and be accepted well ahead of the deadline. If you apply to Uniform Platoon right now, you're not going to have to wait for the Uniform Platoon application deadline to be accepted. We can accept you this week and get you accepted and get you into the enrollment process now. If you are SkillBridge, that is a very important thing, and I encourage you to apply early because it helps us immensely in making sure that all of your SkillBridge paperwork is in order. So, I encourage people to apply early, no matter what status you are, but especially for SkillBridge. So, yeah. Next question.
If I don't get accepted on my first try, can I go back and reapply?
Absolutely, yes. We are not trying to trick anyone. There are no gotchas on this application, nothing like, you applied once and didn't make it, so therefore, don't ever talk to us again. There's nothing like that at Code Platoon. If, in fact, often is the case that if you submit an application that is not quite up to par, the instructors will reach out to you and maybe give you a little feedback on what it is that you can fix and say, hey, if you did X, Y, and Z, you would probably be there. And if people turn around and they followed those guidelines, then they are often accepted on the second attempt. So yes, you absolutely can apply multiple times, and that's perfectly acceptable. And on that note too, with the application challenges, these are not timed. So this is not something where you have to be 100% prepared like you're studying for a test at a college or something like that, where you have to be prepared and then walk in and sit down for 3 hours, and that's the time you have. And if you didn't do it, well, too bad. No, you can go on and look at the challenges right now. You can go on to part 2 of the challenges and get an idea of what you're working towards. There is no timer. And in fact, I have people who take weeks or even months to get through those challenges. Sometimes they answer one problem today, and then they'll take a couple days and answer problem number 2 a couple days from now. So keep in mind that we try to make it as straightforward and as simple as possible. We do realize that it's a new skill set. We're trying to make that as accessible as possible to everyone. Next question.
What do you do to help me get a job when I finish the program?
That's a great question. And the reason it's a great question is because that's where Code Platoon, I think, really excels and makes my job easy. We have an entire career services that comes at the end of the program, headed up by highly motivated people who work on numerous aspects of job seeking and starting that career. This starts from the very beginning. So understand that Code Platoon's main goal is to launch your career. It's not just to give you a skill set. Universities are great at educating people, but they kind of exist in that realm of offering people a foundational education for other things. Code Platoons, we measure success by people launching their career. It's not just obtaining a skill, it's launching their career and moving into this world. So if people don't get their career started, we kind of feel like we failed. So it starts from the very beginning. It starts from our mission, and it goes through what I do, which is what we're doing right here. And it goes through the program itself. So during the program, you will have beyond tech classes that will help you with resume prep or interview questions, things like that. When you get done with the program, you're going to be hooked up with career services who are going to start with the same things. They're going to help make sure your resume is on point. They're going to make sure that you're prepared for interviews, both technical and behavioral types. And then they're also going to hook you up with job leads. Some of that has to do with what Code Platoon does outside of the classroom, which is fostering partnerships with numerous businesses out there who hire our graduates, some of them on apprenticeship level roles, some directly into full-time roles. And our success rates are very high, as evidenced by the companies that our graduates are working for, as well as the salaries that they're being hired for. I think the recent data for 2021 is that our graduates, within 6 months of graduating Code Platoon, 80% of our graduates are making a median salary of $80,000 a year. So that's pretty fantastic, and that's something that we strive for excellence in. Again, that's something that starts from the very beginning of what Code Platoon does and goes all the way through the end of the program and after. So once you're part of the Code Platoon family, that's not something that goes away. We're not going to just shake your hand and say, congratulations, good luck. No, that's an ongoing relationship, and we're always going to work with you in terms of what we can do, in the job development and also job seeking realm. Hopefully that answers the question, but I can go into more detail if needed.
Yeah, I think that was a great answer. Thank you. That was all the questions we had lined up, but if anyone has any more, we've got a little more time. Feel free to put those in the chat or in the Q&A.
Anyone? Like I said, the career services, I like questions like that just simply because it makes my job very easy. So anyone out there, believe me, this is something that Code Platoon takes very seriously, and you're in good hands. You're in good hands here. Anything else? Like I said earlier, and it's still up on the screen, if you do have more questions, my email address is up on the screen. Please do feel free to email me. Oh, sorry about that. And yeah, please feel free to email me, and we could set up a time to chat if you'd like. I'm happy to go into more details on any of this or things that we didn't cover.